Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. When I chose to run as a candidate for Parliament, a decision that began 3 years ago, the number one issue facing this country was our growing inability to get infrastructure built, particularly pipelines for our country's valuable resources. Western Canadians were facing a misguided federal government believing it could continue to speak out of both sides of their mouth on pipelines. Shortly after being elected in 2015, this government initiated a Northwest Coast Canadian oil export ban, causing the closure of a fully licensed pipeline, Northern Gateway. Energy East was presented with more hurdles to complete connectivity of our Canadian resources to Eastern Canadian refineries. Seeing the writing on the wall, the proponent withdrew the proposal. Kinder Morgan, a U.S. pipeline company that had operated safely in Canada for over 60 years, saw the same outcome with their TMX expansion. Luckily for them, they had an international legal agreement backing them, which would have cost the Canadian government billions of dollars in a NAFTA challenge. So the government of Canada bought the pipeline from Kinder Morgan, the existing pipeline plus the expansion. What have Canadians received from the sale? An elongated construction timeline, costs being allocated sometimes opportunistically to add billions to its cost base. Fortunately, as determined by all financial analysis, including the Parliamentary Budget Office, it still makes economic sense on its own, to say nothing of the billions of dollars of value it will bring Canadians in tax revenue and reduced differentials. So when I hear the Minister of Natural Resources claim that his government is responsible for the jobs associated with this pipeline, I roll my eyes and ask myself, whom is responsible for the minister's false self-congratulation? This government loves its storytellers, even when they are complete fiction. Now, fast forward, Keystone XL is canceled by the whims of a new U.S. administration, mid-build, without so much as a whimper from this government. Enbridge's Line 5 is being threatened with closure by a U.S. state, acting on false motives and in defiance of a pipeline treaty between our two nations that is more than 40 years old. Still, this government has not raised alarms at the highest level, signaling that this is unacceptable between two modern, successful trading nations. Once again, the government is feigning support, but not acting decisively. This is a fundamental piece of Canadian infrastructure, and the government needs to fulfill its international relations role, step up right now. There's more danger on the horizon. Activists are lobbying against Enbridge Line 3, our main artery of oil flow. Pipelines leading to the Northwest Coast to get Canadian natural gas to international markets meet unforeseen hurdles, some of which are partially funded by this government. West Coast LNG is our future, no doubt about it. It means reduced carbon emissions for countries that are currently burning vast amounts of coal for power. Our responsibility is to provide them a more environmentally friendly option because we can and because we're good at it. One such facility is under construction. One other is waiting for clarity from this government that they actually believe in environmental solutions beyond virtue signaling. This country, our pipeline industry, our future requires clarity. I challenge this government to actually provide that clarity. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to address this very important issue. Dès le premier jour, le gouvernement a fait.
Since the first day, our government has made providing access to both domestic or foreign markets for our resources an absolute priority that would support the creation of highly skilled, well-paid jobs in the energy sector, and it's still a priority today. Line 3 is a key part of the infrastructure that will further integrate the energy sector across Canada and the U.S., and it will also improve environmental performance, increase the contribution of Indigenous peoples, and generate economic benefits on both sides of the border from coast to coast to coast. In the spirit of our commitment to reconciliation, Canada is working closely with the Indigenous Consultation and Oversight Committee on the Line 3 replacement project. And this initiative will allow Indigenous representatives, the government, and the regulatory body to work together to ensure Indigenous oversight of the project. We've constantly said that working with Indigenous peoples to find solutions will lead to better economic, social, and environmental results. Enbridge has stated that 20% of the Canadian workers replacing Line 3 will be Indigenous. We will continue to work with Indigenous communities and organizations and with our North American partners to strengthen our collaboration on environmental and energy issues facing our continent.
Generated thousands of full-time jobs during construction, replacing a 50-year-old pipeline with a new and safer one. This would improve the integrity of the pipeline network, reduce the transportation of oil by rail and on public roads, and increase environmental safety. Madam Speaker, the Line 3 project is an excellent example of what our government means when we say the environment and the economy go hand in hand. Energy security and ensuring everyone has a safe, reliable, and affordable access to the fuel they need is of great importance to our government. The Line 3 project is a part of this. That is why we continue to do the hard work necessary to secure reliable supply chains, including by building pipeline capacity to get our resources to both domestic and international markets, ensuring this sector continues to be a source of good middle-class jobs for Canadians. Once fully completed in the U.S., Line 3 will transport 760,000 barrels per day, over 370,000 barrels per day in additional capacity, and further support workers in Canada's petroleum sector. De plus, le plan climatique.
Moreover, our government's climate plan and rigorous regulatory framework guarantee that Canadian products transported by this pipeline have been made in compliance with some of the strictest environmental standards in the world. And this project will improve environmental performance, increase Indigenous participation, and also generate economic benefits on both sides of the border. We'll continue to strongly defend this project at every opportunity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
For Calgary Centre.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really appreciate the comments of my colleague, the Parliamentary Secretary, but he talks about Indigenous participation. Well, let me challenge him on the Indigenous participation that was part of Keystone XL, and the 5 Native groups in Saskatchewan and Alberta that were participating in that new project to get Canadian oil to markets in the United States, which would have been more environmentally friendly, replacing the type of oil that's consumed in the United States right now. The entire pipeline was net zero as far as its emissions goes because of the environmental benefits that were received. It was powered by alternative energy. But ESG is something that this government is following the large Canadian industries like the pipelines on as far as their standards go. So the industry is showing the Canadian government where this goes. The government is a fast follower on this. We need to integrate with the United States. When we're not integrating well, we need to call it out and say what it is. Our standards are much higher. Let's make sure they get built. But I will challenge the Parliamentary Secretary again because he refers to Line 3. And Line 3, of course, is already built on the Canadian side. Show the Americans this needs to be built on
the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Madame la Présidente, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his passion on this issue and his comments, and certainly in his knowledge that he shares with us here, and certainly at the Natural Resources Committee as well. And as he knows, the Line 3 replacement project is one of North America's largest infrastructure programs and supports North American energy independence. More than that, the new Line 3 will comprise the newest and most advanced pipeline technology. Our government has made getting our resources to market safely and responsibly a top priority to support good, well-paying jobs in our energy sector. À cette fin,
therefore, we will continue to vigorously defend the relevance of Line 3 everywhere. Line 3 will lead to better environmental performance, to increased participation of Indigenous peoples, and economic benefits on both sides of the border.
Support Canadian crude oil production and U.S. and Canadian refinery demand. It will generate thousands of full-time jobs during construction. Thank you and good night.
Honourable Member for Calgary.